So what happens when organizations need the power of platforms like ServiceNow, but in environments where the public cloud simply isn't an option? Well, today we're going to dive into how Wind River and ServiceNow are rethinking cloud with a sovereign on-premises approach designed for the next generation of enterprise and AI workloads. Welcome, I'm Bob LaLiberte, Principal Analyst at theCUBE Research. And joining me today for this discussion is Mehta, the Vice President of Engineering at Wind River, Grant Challenger, Global Director, ServiceNow Solutions at Wind River, and Neeraj Jain, the Senior Director of Product Management at ServiceNow. Gentlemen, great to have you all here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, Bob.
All right, well, we got a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump into this topic now as enterprises are really rethinking about where and how these workloads are going to run. Neeraj, let's start with you and really with the basics. What is the ServiceNow private stack on Wind River, and what problem are you really looking to solve for enterprises today with that?
Sure. Thank you, Bob, for the question. So ServiceNow has always, Bob, has been known to be a SaaS vendor. In some ways, we were kind of the original pioneers of the SaaS model itself. But we've always had a segment of customers who have higher degrees of sovereign requirements. Right? These customers typically are in regulated industries. If you think about a segment of customers of public sector, FSI, healthcare, telco, these customers, because of their higher degree of digital sovereignty requirements, will not leverage the ServiceNow SaaS offering as a result of that. And ServiceNow, our ethos is that we always want to meet customers where they are. And you'll see that ethos reflected across our AI stack, whether it's the cloud infrastructure layer, the data layer, the models, the agents, the governance pieces, the industry or horizontal workflows, or the experiences and channels. Will always meet customers where they are. Right? Same goes for our deployment choices. We do lead with our SaaS offering, but for customers who need that higher degree of sovereignty, we have our private stack offering. And what is our private stack offering? If you think about it, what is SaaS? SaaS is basically where we are selling software hosted on infrastructure, wrapped with a services layer around it, and we say, hey, here is ServiceNow as a service for you. And in the private stack model, we're basically selling just software. And you can think of the old days, I give you a CD, here is my software on a CD, now you're off to the races. It's almost that, but just not a CD anymore. And this is where customers buy our software, and they are responsible for deploying, management, monitoring, patching, recovery, upgrades, all of the operational burden is on the customer. And this is where, Wind River comes in. And maybe that's a good segue, Viral. I'll pass it to you for what is the role of Wind River here.
Yeah, thank you, Neeraj. So I think as Neeraj mentioned, ServiceNow is bringing the enterprise workload platform into an environment where SaaS model is not a good fit. And what Wind River does is provides the private cloud foundation to make it operationally viable. So we help customers deploy and manage this stack with full automation, orchestration, lifecycle management, consistency across sites. So the value is not only bringing ServiceNow on-prem, but it is bringing a cloud-like operating model to private environments where control, compliance, and resiliency matter a lot. So when an operator is using it, it feels like using the cloud. Right? Out of the box, there are blueprints that allow the operator to set up the entire Now platform automatically. Of course, the operator retains full control to modify as they see fit, but the value these joint solutions bring together is having a cloud environment in a very regulated environment. So operators are used to working in a cloud environment. Now we are able to bring the same convenience to the operator and the same with a much higher reliability.
Got it. So it sounds like Wind River is acting as the easy button to get the ServiceNow solution deployed on premises for organizations and give them that look and feel of the cloud, but on their own premises.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the power of the cloud platform comes in. because we have the operating layers, we have observability, and we have the deployability, right? These are the conductor solutions and analytical solutions, which allow an operator to fully automate how these deployments work. And out of the box, because the teams, ServiceNow and Wind River teams have worked together, we already have built in the easy button for the default deployment.
Yeah, now that sounds great. And for ServiceNow, it's not about replacing their existing cloud. It's about expanding the model to enable those hybrid deployment options. So that's going to be great for that flexibility that organizations are looking for.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Grant, I wanted to turn to you if I could. And as we think about this shift to hybrid and sovereign cloud, and think about some of the drivers, and I think Neeraj and Viral really highlighted the fact about sovereign and also for any kind of regulatory. But I'm wondering if you could also touch upon whether this is about cost, predictability, compliance, operational control. How do organizations align that, especially as you think about, certainly a lot of organizations are thinking about AI at the edge and so forth. So I wonder if you could comment on that for us.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. It's really interesting. ServiceNow, seeing this sovereign cloud requirement coming up with their customers, has made a decision that many vendors, SaaS vendors, would not make, which is they're actually taking over the platform layer that runs the containers and the VMs that runs their applications. In a very simple way, that reduces the cost of operations for their on-premise customers. Those customers no longer need to pay a VMware subscription or staff VMware personnel beyond their current staff, if even less or fewer people. That alone is a starting point for a very more efficient operationally and from a cost standpoint. But in addition to that, Wind River Cloud Platform was built to run in 7.9 level performance. So the SLAs that ServiceNow will be providing, we will meet and exceed those. The level of experience will be the same as in SaaS as it will be on-prem.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking that telco background and rigor into the enterprise to ensure resilience. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think that really sets the stage nicely. And so what I'd like to do is get in a little bit deeper into how this actually works. So I think maybe, Viral, this might be good for you. If you could walk us through how that joint ServiceNow and Wind River solution really works from an operator or user perspective.
Absolutely. So Wind River Cloud Platform provides the ability to run a variety of cloud workloads. It could be a Kubernetes-based workload. It could be VM-based workloads. So what we have done, combining with ServiceNow, is we have used our platform to take ServiceNow services and make sure they are optimized to run into our platform. The engineers work together to make sure these services are optimized. They work really well for our customers. So from the bottom up, we start with the platform layer, which is the operating system, as well as what we call the cloud native tooling, which is a single interface through which you can run Kubernetes or VM-based workloads. Above that, what we have is the orchestrator. This is where a lot of the magic happens. And this is where operators see the power of using these two services together, because now they have recipes or blueprints through which they're able to do new deployments. They are able to set policies through which, when failures happen, they have a lot of options on doing recovery within the instance or having recovery across multiple instances. That's how they establish HA. So they get a lot of control on what's right for their environment. They can define policies both around security. They can define policies around how they want the resilience framework to work. So I think this is where the operator is a very powerful tool for the person who's operating this workload. And then the third and important piece is the observability. So we have an analytics layer through which you can not only understand how the platform is doing, but as well as how the workload itself is doing. This gives a lot of power to the operator to understand. What we also have, because a lot of companies already have observability tools, and we understand that well with our experience working with a lot of customers. So we are even able to channel, so to speak, the data into the observability platforms. So if they already have workflows set up to manage and observe a larger deployment, this seamlessly fits into it. So that an operator doesn't have the cognitive overload of using multiple tools. So I think that's it. That is why operators, the product really is to understand what the day-to operations are. I think getting deployment is critical, but making sure it runs over a period of time reliably, this is where the platform is optimized for.
Got it. And I just want a quick follow-up on that, because obviously ServiceNow, a lot of their customers are the largest in the world. When you talked about the automation, policy based and so forth, are you able to then scale that for those larger organizations? Is that something that's built into the system and the solution?
Absolutely. And I think we have some of the largest telco customers using this in production across thousands of sites. So scale is built into it because we know what it means to run something reliably over a period of time. And when we do things over a period of time, usually the customer's needs has grown. So we are able to support the customer's growth at scale that because we, at the root, we take performance very seriously. We take quality very seriously. This is how we are able to bring the reliability and scale that the customers need to run their workloads.
Got it. And all that operations are done centrally while all the data is local.
Absolutely. And I think this is where a lot of the power comes in, where the operator has flexibility of where to run what workloads. We excel at running distributed workloads where there is centralized management, but if when customer needs to run region-specific or even site-specific workloads for a variety of reasons, it could be a regulatory reason, it could be you're processing high amount of data that cannot leave that region, or it's not cost-effective. Let's say you're processing a large amount of video feeds, then you need to be able to run that workload and only get the inference out and use that as an output rather than bring everything to a central cloud.
Got it. And I wanted to drill down a little deeper on that as well, that, when you're talking about how you're improving the operational efficiency and the resiliency, do you have any self-healing automatic failover capabilities as well for the enterprise as well? And what does that mean ultimately, for uptime?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we run consistently at 6 nines, right? That's the availability that our platforms run at, which is a very high, it's a high availability for our customers. The reason we are able to do that is we have multiple layers of self-healing and self-recovery within the platform. So we have monitors for our own services that make sure if a service fails, it automatically recovers. We have provisions wherein, depending on the duplex, so we have provisions where duplex configurations can be set up so that a true HA can happen. So literally you can have parallel workloads or failover workloads, depending on what the operator sees fits. It's the best one. We have ways to have redundancy in our control plane as well. So it's a layered approach by which we keep on giving the operator the options to increase the amount of reliability on their needs. At the application layer, of course, we have Kubernetes level self-healing, where the Kubernetes pod can be self-healed and recovered. So not only the platform recovers, it enables the applications to recover as well.
Awesome. Well, that was a great explanation on the technology side. And now I think what I'd like to do, we know how much enterprises care about the actual outcomes. So I'd like to maybe take a small turn and bring it back to talking about business value. So Grant, if we could, I wanted to go to you and just get a business perspective. What kind of tangible outcomes should enterprises expect when they're deploying these solutions?
Yeah, thanks. First of all, one of the greatest things about ServiceNow is the tremendous business outcomes they are already famous for, right? That's actually the most powerful thing I can say. We're just doing it on premise in a sovereign cloud. we're not changing those great outcomes. And those workflows, and now with the most powerful with Control Tower, you're getting all this enterprise class AI as well. I think we're adding to this a layer of infrastructure and operational savings that really has more to do with the investment required for the infrastructure. That's going to be our role in the business outcomes. I do want to explain though that this is very simple, and that's what SaaS should be, and that's what sovereign cloud should be. The customer orders from ServiceNow online for, let's say, 100 sites. ServiceNow delivers the ISO in a single package, ready to run the ServiceNow applications, has the infrastructure required that ServiceNow applications require, and it lands on the server, the bare metal server, and is ready to receive its applications. The support comes from ServiceNow. So you're reducing the number of vendors that you need to support your on-premise instances, and can even be run in a completely air-gapped environment. So the business drivers at the infrastructure layer may speak a little differently to the IT infrastructure folks than to the business application owner. But when you combine them, you get the business application return on investment and the infrastructure return on investment.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense from the infrastructure perspective. It's sort of a what I might refer to as the principle of least astonishment for the teams that are used to working in the cloud, and now they're doing it on premises, but it's a very similar look and feel, and they're able to, so it's not impacting time to market for new services. People are being able to bring things up. One of the things I wanted to ask you, clearly we live in an AI era. So, how do you think this helps prepare organizations for some more of the AI-driven workloads or AI as a service, especially at the edge locations?
Well, that's a great point. One of the great things about our solution is it runs in a small environment as 2 cores. And as a result, edge computing is a key part of our value proposition. And what you need for proper AI functions is to be as close as possible to the data that's being generated, and the ability to siphon off, noise from signal in that data. Control Tower and the AI capabilities that are run for ServiceNow take care of that. But if you've got to traverse multiple networks or the internet, you're going to slow down those result sets, right? So edge computing goes closer to where the data is collected, and that could be telemetry, it could be image, whatever is needed. But then, in addition to the infrastructure, we also are world famous for our real-time performance, which is determinism and the ability to guarantee resources to those AI functions. And one of the challenges is when you get a ton more data, you need the ability to give more resources to your AI consumption. We can do that and actually set those deterministic values, guaranteeing that performance. AI as a feature, though, is part of the broader suite of applications at ServiceNow. It feeds the workflows and automates those workflows. So the more of that data that you can collect, obviously, the better the outcomes. And that's where edge computing comes into this.
Yeah, and that's where the sovereign plays a role, right? In certain geographies, they just don't want that data leaving. And so in addition to it, sovereign, right, that regulatory of not leaving that certain geography, you also get the benefit of the performance of getting the results of the analysis faster as well by keeping the data and analyzing it locally. So
absolutely, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And then just real quick to you and Neeraj, are you seeing this unlock new revenue opportunities for enterprises as well and potentially service providers?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go for that. So we're absolutely seeing markets that have historically been locked for ServiceNow as a SaaS vendor being opened up as a result of Private Stack, and specifically Private Stack on the Wind River platform. Okay? So we are seeing in various markets where, because of, I would say, the recent trends or geopolitical climate, there are local cloud providers coming up, and customers want to divest and invest in local cloud solutions. And the role of ServiceNow there is, again, it's a local provider. We leverage our private stack offering to partner with that local provider with Wind River as part of the mix to offer ServiceNow as a sovereign solution in that particular geography. So just the nature of there being an increased focus on sovereignty, digital sovereignty in the last couple of years is creating more opportunities for local cloud providers, and as a result to ServiceNow and Wind River to leverage this joint offering and offer it via the local providers to cater to certain TAMs that were historically locked for us.
Yeah, I would add what's tremendous to see is the view of the growth of this market by 2029 is in excess of 200 billion for sovereign cloud. Roughly 38% per year growth. That's something to pay attention to, and I could speak, if interested, I could speak to some of the key reasons for that that are affecting every organization.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So clearly, there's opportunities for both the enterprises and for those service provider partners in those, local geographies that are able to take advantage of the solution and deliver a service within that geography. So yeah, lots of great opportunity there. So this has been great. I think what I'd love to do as we look to closing this out is look a little bit to the future. So as these enterprises move forward to these more distributed AI-driven environments, how do you see this solution evolving? And I'd like to get all of your takes on it. Maybe we'll start, Viral, we haven't heard from you, so why don't we, in a little bit, so why don't we start with you and then go to Grant and let Neeraj finish it up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as I look at how AI is changing the kind of workloads that enterprises would run, I think there are two trends that are emerging, and that would help enterprises make decisions, and that's where solutions like this will play a big role. One is the general token economics. I think over a period of time, as companies are starting to either use AI to build features and ship to customers, or just use AI internally, they're realizing how quickly they can eat up into their margins, right? So I think it's the early experimentation phase, so there are some boundaries, but as it becomes the norm, people would want more control of where the AI runs, how the AI runs, and having a sovereign cloud gives them the opportunity to be able to do that. It gives them the opportunity of choosing the kind of models that would be available. So I think it will bring them a lot more control. And because of AI, operating these environments, while it becomes complex, but players like us would build capabilities to run those workloads with equal ease as they can run a normal workload today. So we definitely see us playing a big role in helping enterprises having the choice to run sovereign AI workloads with equal ease, right? So that's one trend. The second trend is what we have been talking about around privacy, which is where we bring the compute to the data, right? I think this is a large portion of the last 15, 20 years with the cloud. We have always taken the data to the cloud, do some processing, and infer results out of it. Us being an edge, we have always been able to bring the compute to the data, right? And I think with the SOC innovations, with data centers getting smaller, we having a very short footprint, now we can do it even more powerfully, where it will make inference cheaper for the customers and inference more powerful. And this is where I see the future really going. And this is how we are thinking about how we evolve the platform going forward.
Got it. Makes sense. Grant?
Yeah, I think there's two areas that I see here. First of all, I think there are purpose-built reasons for going on-prem in key industries. In manufacturing, for example, running on-prem, keeping data sovereign on-prem, and the workloads that need to run there also are very specific to those use cases. And a lot of times the data is the IP in those facilities. So delivering a solution that is ready-made for that environment is what we're working on with the OT business unit within ServiceNow, which is a very fast-growing business unit that enables access to proprietary protocols within the industrial segment, data that's there that you just can't get easily without having those systems localized and able to deal with the security requirements. So that's my perspective on the OT environment, and access to that market requires on-prem functionality. The other one, which I think is really interesting, is we're building an ecosystem with Sovereign Cloud. Having the ability to orchestrate and move workloads around becomes a north-south challenge with a lot of our customers. It also is an east-west challenge. Where your compute is required, especially with AI, you want the ability to orchestrate those workloads, move them around. But you also have the ability to add workloads to those environments, a new VM to run a new application that ServiceNow has launched. They just acquired Armis. You want your on-premise instance to run Armis. You order that from the ecosystem at ServiceNow. It downloads to your on-prem environment just like a SaaS instance. Or you just want to add 5 more VM workloads to that environment because your own developer group built some new applications or whatever those things are. You can now orchestrate that through your ServiceNow orchestration layer. That begins to look more and more like this cloud-like environment, but in a sovereign and on-premise basis.
Sounds good. Neeraj, take us home.
Thank you, Grant. Thank you, Bob. So my key takeaways are that I want everyone to kind of take away from this conversation. We spoke a lot about sovereign cloud, but just to be very transparent, we don't think like SaaS is dead. We still think SaaS is going to be the primary consumption model for most customers. However, with that said, sovereign cloud is going to expand at a much more rapid rate than it has historically been advancing at. And the reasons we see, the trends we're seeing in the market is what we're seeing is due to geopolitics. There's more sovereign cloud demand from markets that historically did not have sovereign cloud demand. So we see expansions coming there. What we're also seeing is RFPs being issued by public sector in many countries where they are specifically asking that, hey, this platform has to be deployed locally, operated by citizens on soil, thereby leading to SaaS offerings being disqualified from even applying to that or responding to that RFP. So again, we lead with private stack there, sovereign cloud offerings there. And the third is AI. What we're also seeing with the acceleration in AI adoption, a segment of the market wants all AI processing to happen locally for whatever reasons that they may have, right? Like they want all AI processing to be happening locally within their data centers through open weight models, right? So due to these trends, we are absolutely seeing that sovereign cloud as a market is expanding at a much more rapid rate than it historically has been, right? And this is where going forward, we only see goodness. We only see this private stack offering on the Wind River platform making a bigger impact, catering to a broader set of customers in these markets. And really, that's the main takeaway that I'd say from this conversation and where we see the market moving. And as a result, many more local vendors coming out where we partner with them locally to offer our solution to those markets. I see that as the forward-going trend.
Awesome. Well, listen, gentlemen, this has been a great discussion. And it's really clear, as you pointed out, cloud isn't going anywhere. But it's also not a one-size-fits-all anymore either, right? So enterprises are looking for that flexibility, that control, and the ability to run those workloads wherever it makes the most sense, especially as we talked about as AI becomes more distributed and data intensive. I look at this as the combination of ServiceNow's workflow automation, Wind River's cloud platform is really able to deliver that balance that those organizations are looking for, whether they be enterprises or even those regional service providers as well. So fantastic conversation. If anyone wants more information on these solutions we're talking about today, please visit the Wind River website. Again, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you got it. And thanks to our audience for watching. I'm Bob LaLiberte from theCUBE Research. Thanks for tuning in.